Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Kathy. Today I wanted to talk about my hunting experience with my husband, and I also wanted to talk about my time after my experience after raising my first shrine. So let's get to it. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget to subscribe below so that you guys can get the latest updates on my videos, or else you can follow Between Drums and Dreams on the Facebook page. So let's get to it. So I don't usually like to go hunting or fishing with my husband because I have my reasons. But with this being my husband's first year or maybe his second year of hunting, I decided that I was going to go with him because he didn't quite have like a partner, or like the kids weren't old enough to go with him yet. So I went with him, and it was, I don't, if you guys know, hunting, you're supposed to go like before the sunrise, right before the sunrise. So we went up north. He set up his blind, and it sucks because like we had to walk in the dark through the woods to find a spot to set up his blind. And I got to put on my big girl pants and went with him and sat in the dark with him in the blind. Thank goodness, because if we just sat out without a blind, I think I'd feel even more uncomfortable. But we sat in the blind, and I was like still kind of tired, so I had my eyes closed, and I was just really minding my own business. And at that time, I wasn't aware that I could talk to spirits. Yeah, because usually I can only like see like things in the corner of my eye, or like flashes of images, unless they really want me to see it, right? To see them. So I had closed my eyes and I was resting my eyes, and all of a sudden I heard a male voice, and he was like, "Oh, what are you guys doing here?" And I was like, I couldn't see who it was, but I kind of had a feeling like it was probably the Jew of of that land, which is like the Jew is like the pretty much like the boss of that land, or the guardian of the land, right? So I was like, oh, we're not here to cause any harm. We're not a threat. We're just here because my husband wanted to hunt for some animals, to hunt for, animals to bring home to eat. And he was like, oh, okay. He's like, okay, or I see a lot of people who come on this land to hunt. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he went on to tell me that, that when the sun rises at its highest peak, the forest is just gorgeous, so beautiful looking. And I was like, okay. And and I was like, oh, I'm really like, I can't wait to tell my husband about this. I don't know if he's gonna believe me or not. And then all of a sudden he's like, he's not gonna believe you unless he sees it with his own eyes. And I was like, how does he know that? And it's true. My husband, he has to see it with his own eyes to believe it. But then he was like, here, let me show you. And then all of a sudden my husband turned to me and he told me, he was like, shh. And he pointed outside his blind. And when I looked out there, it was a buck. It's like a big deer. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then done me, I accidentally stepped on the twig and it snapped, and then it scared the deer away. So yeah. So that was my first encounter of that land. And so sun is up, we started venturing deeper into the woods, and then all of a sudden I hear another voice, and he's like really friendly person, and he's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, we're not here to cause any harm or whatever. We're only here because my husband wants to hunt to bring home some food." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, well, we always see people on this land." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he went on to tell me how they were, like back in the Wild West time, and these Americans were traveling. They were traveling, and then all of a sudden, they got ambushed, and so that's how they passed away. And he was like, "Oh, we decided that we wanted to stay here on this land because it's a really nice land." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So then when we were gonna leave, we didn't say we were gonna go home. We just said that we were gonna leave. And all of a sudden, as I was gonna get into a truck, all I heard was, "We'll see you next time." And in my head, I'm like, "Next time? Like, I don't want to come here next time." So then we left, and then we went to a different place, because my husband wanted to try to go for turkeys. And so then it was like a long walk on a trail to get to like the place that he needed to be. And y'all, I'm freaking lazy. I just don't want to walk. But it was a long walk. But on our way back, my husband wanted to try hunting for small game, right? So we went off the trail to the right, didn't really see much. And the woods wasn't really all that too far deep. Or like maybe it just wasn't like visible enough to go hunting. So then we got back on the trail, and we went towards the left side of the trail. And towards the left side of the trail, there's a lot of like skinnier pine trees and stuff like that. Or skinnier trees. And my husband's busy looking up in a tree, and I'm kind of looking up too, until I finally look down, look straight into the woods, and I see this bunzong, right? And bunzong is like a female entity. She had long hair, long black hair. She was kind of standing like this with her long black hair. She was wearing like a black and blue outfit with a white skirt. And I'm like, "Oh, shoot. Like, why is there an entity there? I'm just going to pretend like I didn't see it, and I'm just going to mind my own business." But it was still standing there, just watching me and my husband. And my husband's, oblivious to this whole thing that's happening, right? And I'm over here, battling internally inside. And so then my husband's like, "Okay, I don't see anything here. Let's get back onto the trail." So we got back onto the trail, and I see her. On the opposite end of the trail where we are walking towards her. And then I see a dragon head come out to my right. I see a dragon head. And it goes towards the entity, and it eats it. And I've heard stories of dragons eating spirits or entities, right? But who would have ever thought that I would have experienced it and saw it with my own eyes, and I was in awe. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Who would have ever thought that I would encounter this? Me. And then that was it. And so then my husband and I we just went on the trail and got back into our truck. And as we were driving home, I told my husband about what happened, and I was like, "I don't think you should go back to that same place." And he's like, "Oh, it should be okay because your dragon ate it, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he was like, "Then I should be okay then." And I'm just like, man, he's so stubborn, so stubborn. But I was like scared, you know? I mean, I wasn't scared, but I was like, shoot, what do we do? What do we do? So that was my encounter going hunting with my husband. It was quite a day, and I was really exhausted because of like the long conversations that I had at the first site and then the second site encountering that. So yeah, if you guys go hunting, make sure that you don't say that you are going home, and make sure that you are confident when you go, and don't show any fear or lack of confidence in yourself, because it's really easy for anything to just follow you. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. They would still follow if they really wanted to anyways. But going hunting with my husband was definitely an eye-opener to, because you always hear stories about people going hunting and then they come home getting haunted and this and that, right? And I never knew that it was true, but now that I've seen it with my own eyes, yeah, it's very possible. But, oh, my husband was so lucky I was there to protect him. So that is my story. And then we can move on to talking about me, what happened, my experience after raising my first shrine. So, with my first shrine, I had already, been able to chant, and just kind of really just exploring like the spiritual world. I mean, not exploring. I had a lot of work, but just getting used to going into the spiritual world, right? So when we raised my first shrine, I actually onang one more time, because I felt like my first session with my first shrine was very short. And because, my teacher wasn't there and the shrine was still already set, I decided to onang again. And it was kind of nerve-wracking, and my husband and I were just really just kind of navigating through on like, shoot, like what are we supposed to do again, or are we doing this right? And let me tell you guys, like, it's okay if you don't get everything. I forgot to do a couple things, and my husband had to remind me, but even with just us two, we still forgot just some minor stuff, right? But my first week consisted of intense training. I got lectured at every single day, okay, by my onang. They every day that I went to onang, they're always like, "What took you so long?" And I was just like, "Well, I didn't know. I did not know, but I'm here now. So." Yeah, I got a lot of lecturing, and be prepared. Be prepared to get lectured at. But, I remember that I was always stuck on this haunted trail. It was a dirt path that I was supposed to take up to a mountain. Okay, that was my goal, because I kept seeing the dirt path and then a mountain in the distance. And every single time I am on that path, I feel like I never get up to the mountain. Or maybe I do. Or eventually I do. But I'm always put on that path. And the path is always so haunted. All the time. And I'm like always like just fighting these things on this trail. And I have no critical thinking. Like, I have critical thinking in my job, right? My career. But when it comes to this, I'm like, why am I always here? Why are we like trying to why do I feel like I'm getting ambushed here on this trail all the time? And so but it made me realize like, oh yeah, maybe that's what I was supposed to do. Like I'm supposed to fight all these entities and get rid of them. You know, maybe this is part of my duty for my lineage is, you know, kind of like the Demon Slayer movie, right? Where they go and they get rid of all these demons. But I'm over here like getting rid of these like not so nice spirits and stuff, or these spirits or entities. And so that it finally clicked in my head. Was I scared? No, I was not scared. It was just kind of an annoyance. Like I was just annoyed. Like why am I always here? And then I was also like confused. Like why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep coming to the same place? Like it was just frustrating. But I was also learning how to navigate in a spiritual world. And by my second week, it did start to slow down to where I could start doing it every other day. And I know for me, I know that I need to ordain is when I start to have like body aches. You know, like just from like before I even raised my shrine, I had really bad like backache and stuff. So when I start to feel like my back is starting to hurt really bad again, then I had to ordain. And every single time I ordain, I feel so much better. And so that's my sign. Do I listen to it? No. So, sometimes I wait until like I'm just in so much pain, and then I will ordain, and then it gets better, right? So that is my experience with, you know, after raising my first shrine. I didn't do Hoopli for you know, like my families and stuff, but I did Hoopli just for like my husband and my kids, because I wasn't overly confident in myself, and I was still trying to understand the process and how it works to Hoopli, right? So I've done Hoopli for my kids, and it took a while, you know, just getting used to it, you know, just getting used to calling them and seeing them come into the home and just kind of finding your drill. So with your first shrine, I highly recommend that you take your time. For me, because I was 10 plus years overdue, I wasn't on my first shrine too long. And I knew that I needed to go to my second one. And this is just for me, my own experience. I mean, yours could be different too, but how I knew that I needed to go to my second one was because I kept getting stuck. You know, kind of like there's a wall there. You want to go past it, but you can't go past because that's the farthest you can go. And I remember when I was in the spiritual world, I kept getting stopped, and I couldn't go any further. And I would always see, you know, with me flying, I would always see my dragon come back and make a U-turn, and we always come back home. So, so that's how I knew. And I had just raised my first shrine in May, right? And we were already like a month into, you know, just raising it. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm limited and I can't go any further. You know, there's so much more I need to learn. And at the same time, my Honing and them were like, you need to raise your second shrine. You need to, you know, tell your teacher. And I'm like, oh, you know, like I'm not ready because I don't know when I would be ready. My teacher knew. She knew. But for me, I'm over here like, I'm not ready yet, you know, and I'm still working on my confidence, and I'm still working on, like, you know, trusting them and believing in them too. And it was just like a lot of like back and forth for me. And so then I was like, okay, you know, I'm gonna raise my shrine in February of 2026. And I just knew it was gonna be a really, really long summer, because then my training really slowed down. You know, I could go like maybe once or twice a week without having to, and you know, without having to ordain. And you know, there was one time where they had lectured me when I was doing ordain, and they lectured me. And I remember I was there, and my colleagues and they were there, and my teacher was there, and they they were upset with me, and they told my teacher, they're like, oh, you know, we need you to convince her to raise her second shrine. and and then my teacher, she started laughing, and she's like, no, 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 this is not a me problem, this is a you guys problem, so you guys gotta figure this out. So I told my teacher about it, and she was laughing about it. But yes, um, you know, the summer was really slow. It was really slow, and it was, you know, every single time I did go in and train, it was just like I was just coming to a blockage, right? Like I was being blocked. I couldn't go any further. So then I gave in, and I was like, oh, okay, fine. Like, let me set for a sooner date, which we did. And then my guys were like really happy, right? They're really happy, like, oh, finally she is, you know, gonna go to her second one. Like, we don't understand why she's doing her first. Like, why is she listening to us? I don't usually listen to them. It's a me problem. But yeah, so that is what happened. And then once they found out, or once they knew that I had set a sooner date, they started showing me how they want my shrine to be built, what they want on my shrine, you know, what color like cloth they want on their tools and stuff. It was just, they were really excited. They were really excited. And that's how it was. Like, even like, you know, the days leading up to raising my second shrine, they were really excited. They were just constant, like, this is what we want, this is what we want. And I'm like, I don't know, but okay. I will consult with my teacher. So, you know, if you are on your first shrine, or, you know, if you are planning on raising your first shrine, you know, for me, I highly recommend that you get to know how to be one, be as one. How to communicate with your spirit guides, you know, how to feel the movement in your body when you are in trance, and learning how to communicate, right? For me, I had a couple years before I even raised my first shrine, before I even found a teacher, and I really just took the time to learn how to communicate with them, learning what I could do, like my ability wise, you know, with my senses, like hearing, touching, seeing, just, or, you know, just whatever, to figure out what I was good at, what I was not good at. And but you know, with your first shrine, just know that it's you're still training, and every single day counts with your training. It's not just, oh, you know, it's just, I'm just practicing. I mean, yeah, you are kind of practicing, but you really are doing things in the spiritual world. Like, you're training. Like, they're gonna get you going. And so just be prepared, you know, and don't feel rushed. There's no time limit, right? Like, there's no, just because, okay, like for me, I feel like if I could have raised my shrine sooner rather than wait so long, I probably would have. But because of my lack of confidence and trusting myself, I waited. I waited for a while, and there's no rush. You know, you take your time. When you do feel like you are ready and confident enough, then go to your second one. But if you still feel like you're having issues, you know, in the spiritual world or when you're doing ordain and stuff, I would stay on your first one until you're ready. Because when you go to your second shrine, it is, you know, you are pretty much like ready to 得众 and ordain, right? So you are ready to go and provide services to the public now. So just be prepared, and you know, don't do this for anybody else but yourself, because at the end of the day, you are the one who is on this journey. You know, there's no expectations for you but yourself. You know, whatever you set for yourself, that's your expectation, and nobody else is gonna expect you to, oh, we need you to do this and that and that. We need you to get to your second shrine by, you know, in 3 months. No, that's not a thing. It's all based on you and your Huning, right? And stay connected with your teacher. You know, be open about it. Don't shy away from it. And if you have questions, I would always ask questions, because sometimes, you know, they know the answer and they're just waiting for you to come and ask them. So that is my experience with my first, after raising my first shrine. You know, it's not really too much, you know, and it was a lot of training to prepare me for my second shrine. And I take my training very seriously, even though I'm not really good at my critical thinking. But the more you do it, the more you start to feel more comfortable, the more you get used to what you're supposed to do. And then everything starts to just kind of flow very smoothly for you. But best of luck to you guys. You know, ask me any questions. If you have any in regards to your first shrine or leading up to your first shrine. You know, again, this journey is very lonely, because, you know, you have to find the people who are willing to support you. And yeah, you can talk to anybody about it, but it's different because they don't understand what you are going through, right? So, and you know, you'll find it in you. You'll find the people who are the ones who are going to be there for you and listen to you and support you. So just hang in there. You know, I believe in you guys. You know, it's a journey, and no journey is ever easy, you know. So best of luck to you guys, and don't forget to subscribe below, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.